It was the kind of cold that didn't just touch your skin, it settled in your bones. I remember staring at the steam rising from my untouched plate in this beautiful, warm restaurant, surrounded by the low hum of money and success, and I have never felt more empty in my life. Then I heard her voice, a soft, cracking sound, like ice giving way. "May I have your leftover food?" Time stopped. Not in a poetic way, but in a real, physical way. The clink of silverware faded. The laughter from the next table just disappeared. All that existed was that voice, coming from near the entrance by the kitchen door. I turned my head. She stood just outside, a silhouette against the icy New York night, framed by the glow of the streetlight and the dark shapes of the trash bins. A young woman, shoulders hunched against the wind, clutching a small backpack. Her words hung in the air between us, a confession of a need so deep it silenced the entire room. Something shattered inside my chest. A dam I didn't even know I was holding back. I stood up. My chair scraped loud against the floor. I didn't think. I just walked past my waiter, past the other tables, my expensive shoes clicking on the marble until I was at the door. She looked up at me, and I saw it all. The shame, the fear, the fierce pride trying to hold itself together in her eyes. She braced herself, I think, for me to yell, to shoo her away like a stray animal. "Come inside," I said. My voice was softer than I'd heard it in years. Her eyes widened. She shook her head, a tiny, desperate movement. "No, I just wanted—" "You deserve to be warm," I said, and I meant it with everything I was. "You deserve a proper meal, please." I stepped back, holding the door open. The restaurant was dead silent. Every eye was on us. I didn't care. She hesitated for a lifetime, shivering on the threshold. Then, with a courage I still can't fathom, she took one small step, and then another, into the warmth. She kept her gaze on the floor as I led her to my table. I pulled out the chair opposite mine. She sat like a bird ready to take flight, perching on the very edge. When the waiter came back, I just asked for a menu and a glass of water. She ordered the cheapest soup. When it came, she ate slowly, methodically, every spoonful a quiet act of gratitude. She wouldn't look at me, but I looked at her. I saw the careful mend in her glove, the way her hair was clean but frayed at the ends, the quiet dignity in the set of her jaw even as she trembled. Her name was Lily. And that night, in the glow of that ridiculous candle on the table, she told me her story. Not all at once, but in pieces, between sips of water. Ohio, a community college, a dream of being a nurse, a mother lost to cancer, a stepfather who sold the house and vanished, a bus ticket to New York with a promise of a job that never existed, a series of couches, then a shelter, then the streets. I just listened. I didn't offer solutions. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. And for the first time since my parents' funeral, since every hollow business deal and failed relationship that felt more like a negotiation, I felt something real. It was an ache, a pull, a recognition. Here was another soul, shipwrecked by life, just like me. When the bill came, I made an offer. Not charity, I was very clear. I had a small studio, a guest apartment in a building I owned. It was empty. It had a lock. She could use it. No strings, no debt. Just a safe, warm place to sleep while she got on her feet. The war in her eyes was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen. The desperate need fighting a lifetime of disappointment. Finally, she nodded, just once. "Just until I get my first paycheck," she whispered. Those next weeks, they changed the very air I breathed. Lily found a job at a cafe 2 blocks over. She'd leave before dawn. I'd hear her quiet steps in the hallway. We fell into a rhythm. Me leaving a spare key on the counter. Her leaving a note saying, "Thank you for the coffee." Then it was coffee shared in my kitchen, sitting on opposite sides of the island, the morning light painting her face as she told me about the customers. Then it was late nights. Me coming home from another sterile, high-stakes meeting. Her at my door with a leftover pastry from the cafe. It would have been thrown out, she'd say, that same phrase from the first night, but now with a hint of a smile. We'd talk. About nothing. About everything. About her mom's garden in Ohio. About the silent void my own father left behind. She brought life into my perfectly curated, perfectly dead apartment. A single daisy and a glass of water on the windowsill. The smell of simple, clean soap instead of my expensive cologne. Laughter, real and unguarded, echoing off walls that had only heard the news or negotiating tactics. I was so careful. I never overstepped. I treated her independence like it was sacred, because it was. She was saving every dollar, her determination a physical force in the room, and every day she grew stronger, a little more light came back into her eyes. And every day I secretly dreaded the moment that light would leave my home. The day she told me she'd found a room to rent, a share with another student near a community college, I smiled. I helped her pack her few things. I told her I was proud of her. And the moment the door closed behind her, the silence that rushed back in was louder than any sound I'd ever heard. It was the silence of before. The cold. I went back to my life. The deals, the dinners, the empty bed in a quiet apartment. It was all exactly the same, and it was all completely ruined. Because now I knew what warmth felt like, and I missed it with a physical pain that sat heavy under my ribs. Until the afternoon, weeks later, when a business associate made an offhand comment at a lunch. He'd seen her leave my building months ago. "That your charity case, Miller?" he chuckled, nudging his friend. "Nice of you to help the less fortunate." The words were a punch to my gut, but I didn't know they were a knife in her back. I didn't know she was working a shift at the cafe right behind us. I didn't see her hear it. I didn't see the light in her eyes snuff out all over again. She came to me that night. Her face was pale, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. The hurt in her eyes was raw and burning. Was that all it was? Her voice trembled, not with cold, but with a fury born of humiliation. A charity project for the lonely rich guy? Lily, no, that's not... I never wanted to be rescued, Chris. I never wanted your pity. The words hit me, each one a stone. I just wanted the leftover food. She looked at me, and I saw the girl from the trash bins again, the wall slamming back up between us. I'm not your story, I'm my own. And before I could find the right words, the true words that were screaming inside me, she was gone. The door didn't slam, it clicked shut, quiet and final. And this time, she didn't leave a note. The winter turned brutal, the city froze, and I walked through it like a ghost, haunting the same spaces, waiting for a warmth that had vanished. I went back to that restaurant once, sat at the same table. The memory of her sitting across from me, so fragile and so strong, was more vivid than the person in front of me now. It was over. I had let the one real thing I'd found in a decade of nothing slip through my fingers because I was too afraid to name it. Too afraid to tell her that she hadn't just taken my leftover food that night. She had taken my whole, empty heart. Months passed. A gray, hollow stretch of time. I tried to lose myself in work, in the clatter of construction sites and the dry pages of contracts. But my penthouse felt like a museum exhibit. The life of Chris Miller, a study in silence. I kept the cheap coffee she liked in the cupboard. I'd find one of her hair ties, a faded blue one, tucked under the couch cushion, and I'd just hold it. A stupid, painful little relic. I heard about her in fragments. From the barista at the cafe who said she'd quit, that she'd gotten into a nursing program, that she was moving forward. I was proud of her, and it felt like swallowing glass. The city began to thaw. Buds appeared on the trees in Central Park, but the chill inside me stayed. One evening, after another meeting that meant nothing, I found myself wandering. My feet, with a will of their own, carried me down a familiar street, toward the glow of the cafe where she used to work. I told myself I just wanted a coffee, that it didn't mean anything. I pushed the door open. The bell jingled the same way. And there she was, behind the counter wearing a simple green apron, her hair tied back. She was laughing at something a coworker said, and the sound of it, hit me right in the center of my chest. She looked different, stronger. Her shoulders were straight. There was a calm certainty in her movements that hadn't been there before. She was beautiful. Not in the way I remembered, which was fragile and needing protection. She was beautiful like a lighthouse, solid, enduring, casting light. She turned to take the next order, and her eyes met mine. The smile froze on her face. The color drained from her cheeks, then rushed back. The noise of the grinder, the chatter, it all melted into a dull roar in my ears. We just looked at each other. Across the space of the cafe, across the months of silence, across an ocean of things unsaid. I saw the flash of pain in her eyes, then confusion, then a deep, cautious stillness. She finished taking the customer's order, her hands steady, but I saw her press them flat against the counter for just a second, grounding herself. I didn't know what to do. Leave? Stay? My mouth was dry. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I got in line. It was the longest, shortest line of my life. When I finally reached the front, she was there. She looked at me, waiting. Her expression was unreadable, a professional mask. "Just a black coffee, please," I managed, my voice rough. She nodded, rang it up. I fumbled with my card. The transaction was silent, unbearably formal. As she handed me the change, her fingers briefly brushed mine. A jolt, electric and painful, went straight through me. She felt it too. I saw her flinch. I took my coffee and went to a small table in the corner, my back to the wall. I couldn't leave. I just sat there, holding the scalding cup, watching her work. She was efficient, kind to customers, but the easy laughter was gone. I had done that. I had brought the shadow back into her sun. My coffee grew cold. The cafe began to empty out. Her shift was ending. She untied her apron, hung it up, said something quiet to her manager. She grabbed her coat from a hook and her backpack, the same one from that winter night. She hesitated, looking at the floor. Then she took a deep breath and walked toward my table. My whole world narrowed to the space between us. She stopped, standing across from me. The air felt charged, tight. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how I was. She looked down at my full, cold cup of coffee, then up into my eyes. And in a voice so soft it was almost stolen by the hum of the refrigerator, she repeated the words that started it all. "May I have your leftover food?" Time folded in on itself. We were back at the restaurant door, the winter wind howling. I saw the vulnerability in her eyes now, not from need for a meal, but for something else entirely. A truth, a chance. I looked up at her, and I let everything I'd been carrying for months show in my face. All the regret, the loneliness, the awe I felt for her. My eyes filled, and I didn't try to hide it. I shook my head slowly, a small, sad smile touching my lips. "No," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I don't have any leftovers, Lily. Her breath caught. She searched my face, waiting. I took another breath, the most important one of my life. But I have a life, I said, the words clear and sure. An empty, quiet life that I've been walking through like a ghost. And I don't want the leftovers of it. I want to share the whole thing. With you. The mask she was holding onto crumbled. A tear escaped, tracing a path down her cheek. She wasn't the girl by the trash bins. She wasn't my charity case. She was Lily Carter, future nurse, survivor, the woman who had walked into my cold world and lit a fire. It was never about pity, I whispered, needing her to hear it. It was about recognition. I was in a prison of my own making. You were out in the cold. We were both just alone. And then we weren't. She was silent for a long moment, just looking at me, seeing me. Really seeing me. For the first time since that terrible fight. She saw the truth of it. Finally, she pulled out the chair and sat down, not across from me. Next to me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. I'm not a project to be fixed, Chris, she said, her voice firm but gentle. I know, I said, turning to face her. You're the person who fixed me. A real smile, small and tremulous, finally broke through. I applied to a nursing residency at NYU Medical Center. I'm not surprised, I said, and the pride in my voice was real. You'll be incredible. We sat in the quiet cafe in a pool of yellow light as the city moved in blues and grays outside the window. We talked, not about the past, not yet, but about now, about her classes, about the stubbornness of the old oak tree outside my building that was finally budding, about the simple, profound fact of sitting together without pretense, without a transaction. When we finally left, we walked out together. The spring air was cool, but not cruel. The streetlights were coming on, painting the sidewalks in gold. I didn't reach for her hand. She didn't take my arm. We just walked side by side through the glowing canyon of the city. Two souls, not a savior and a survivor, not a donor and a recipient. Just two people who had offered each other the last thing they had left in the world. A little kindness, a little space, a little warmth. And from those leftovers, we built something whole. We walked, and the distance between us wasn't measured in inches, but in the understanding that the long winter was finally, truly over. And whatever came next, we wouldn't have to face the cold alone.